Man, there's something about wild animals that just blows my mind. Every time I think I've heard the craziest story, someone comes on the podcast and tells me something that makes me realize how little we actually know about nature. You think you understand how animals behave, and then you hear about a chimpanzee organizing a coordinated ambush or a whale saving a human from a shark, and it completely flips your understanding of what's possible. Over the years, I've had scientists, hunters, wildlife experts, and explorers sit right across from me and share some of the most insane, almost unbelievable animal stories ever told. And every time, I'm left just sitting there, shaking my head, wondering how the hell this planet got so weird. One of the first stories that stuck with me was about orcas, man. Killer whales are some of the smartest, most strategic predators on the planet. There was this story about a group of orcas off the coast of Patagonia that learned to intentionally beach themselves to grab sea lions. They time the waves, slide up on shore, grab a sea lion, and then wriggle back into the ocean before the next wave crashes. That's not instinct, that's training. The older orcas teach the younger ones how to do it. They've literally developed a culture, like a surf gang of apex predators. Then there was the one about elephants. A conservationist told me elephants can remember human faces for decades. There was this one elephant that hadn't seen its caretaker for over 20 years, and when it did, it ran toward him, trumpeting and flapping its ears like a reunion between long-lost friends. Elephants even mourn their dead. They'll visit the bones of their relatives years later, touching them with their trunks, almost like a ritual. It's so human. It's eerie. And speaking of eerie, there's nothing creepier than octopuses. I had a marine biologist tell me that octopuses can solve puzzles, open jars, even mimic other species. There was this one in an aquarium that kept sneaking out of its tank at night to eat fish from the neighboring tanks, and then it would crawl back before morning like nothing happened. The only reason they caught it was because they set up a night camera. That's like something out of a Prison Break movie, except it's an animal with no bones and 3 hearts. One of my favorite stories came from a hunter who was talking about mountain lions. These big cats are ghosts, man. You can be walking through the woods and not even know one's been stalking you for miles. There was this one case where a wildlife tracker reviewed footage from a GoPro after a hike, and in the background, just out of focus, you could see a mountain lion following him for half an hour, calculated, waiting. It never attacked. It just watched. That kind of patience, that's next-level predator behavior. Then there's the honey badger, the most fearless animal alive. There was a clip from a wildlife reserve where a honey badger was cornered by 6 lions, and instead of running, it attacked, bit one right on the nose. The lions were so confused they backed off, and the badger just walked away like it owned the place. And the crazy part? Their skin is so tough and loose that if a predator bites them, they can twist around and bite back from inside the predator's mouth. That's some Wolverine-level resilience. You'll never forget the gorilla stories either. Jane Goodall once described how a dominant silverback would intervene in fights to keep peace in his group, literally playing mediator like a tribal leader. And there's that story of Coco the gorilla, who knew over 1,000 sign language words. She once blamed her pet cat for breaking a sink. A gorilla lied. Think about that, a gorilla telling a lie to avoid trouble. That's intelligence, emotion, and a touch of humor. Another story that blew me away was about crocodiles in Australia. These things are like living dinosaurs, right? But here's the wild part: they've been seen using tools. Some of them place sticks on their snouts during nesting season when birds are gathering materials for their nests. The birds swoop down to grab the sticks and bam, the croc snatches them. That's a reptile using bait. That's cold-blooded genius. One of the strangest came from a deep-sea diver who told me about sperm whales sleeping vertically in the water, completely motionless, just hanging there in the darkness like ghosts of the ocean. If you swim past, you'll see these massive, silent shapes suspended mid-water, their eyes closed, dreaming. It's haunting and beautiful at the same time. Then there's the legend of the immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii. When it gets old or injured, it can literally revert back to its juvenile state and start life over again. Essentially, it never dies unless something eats it. That's not just survival, that's biological immortality. Nature basically created a creature that can reset itself forever. Another crazy one came from Alaska bald eagles teaming up to steal fish from grizzly bears. A bear pulls a salmon from the river, and while it's eating, eagles dive in, distracting it until one swoops down and grabs the leftovers. Total mob tactics. You've got the biggest predator on land being bullied by birds. Then you hear about wolves in Yellowstone, how reintroducing them actually changed the flow of rivers. Because they started hunting deer again, the deer stopped grazing so close to riverbanks. The vegetation grew back, the soil stabilized, and the rivers stopped eroding as fast. Wolves literally reshaped the landscape just by existing. That's an apex predator affecting the planet's architecture. And don't even get me started on crows. Crows recognize human faces, hold grudges, and even bring gifts to people they like. There was a woman who fed crows near her home, and one day they started leaving shiny trinkets on her porch buttons, bits of metal, beads. They were literally repaying her kindness, and scientists tested this if you wear a mask and act aggressively toward a crow. Years later, they'll remember that face and warn other crows about you. They gossip. Birds gossip about humans. One guest told me about a case in India where a leopard actually started acting like a guard dog for a village. For weeks it stayed near the outskirts, keeping wild boars and other predators away. The villagers began leaving food out for it, and the relationship lasted for months. Nobody knows why. Maybe it was an old leopard just seeking peace, or maybe it understood the balance of that space. And then there's dolphins. Everyone knows dolphins are smart, but the stories I've heard are next level. There was a woman in New Zealand who said dolphins formed a circle around her while she was swimming, and minutes later, a great white shark appeared nearby. The dolphins stayed in formation until she got to shore. It's like they were protecting her. That's not instinct, that's empathy. I've heard divers talk about manta rays approaching humans to ask for help. One diver said a manta ray swam right up to him with a fishing hook stuck in its fin. It stayed perfectly still while he removed it, then circled him twice before swimming off. That's a wild creature recognizing another species as an ally. One of the darker stories came from the Congo about chimpanzees hunting in organized groups. They coordinate ambushes, use communication signals, and even block escape routes. They'll eat the smaller monkeys they catch. It's brutal, but it's pure strategy chimp warfare. And sometimes they'll do it for dominance, not even food. That's a reflection of something deeply primal that humans share. Then there's the story of a zebra that killed a lion by kicking it in the skull. People forget how powerful zebras are. They look like gentle horses, but their kick can crush bone. That's nature's black and white revenge. I had a guest who studied ants, and the stuff ants do makes humans look inefficient. They wage wars, take prisoners, and have specialized caste soldiers, workers, farmers. Some even cultivate fungus like crops. There's a species called the slave-making ant that invades other colonies, steals their young, and forces them to work. That's organized crime on an insect scale. One of the creepiest things I've ever heard about is the parasitic fungus that infects ants cordyceps. It takes over their brains, forces them to climb to a high point, and then grows a stalk out of their heads to spread spores. Real-life zombie ants. It's nature's version of The Last of Us. Then you've got hippos people. Think they're cute, but they kill more humans in Africa than lions. They can run faster than you think and bite a crocodile clean in half. One ranger said he saw a hippo chase a boat like a torpedo, completely underwater, then surface right under it and flip it. That's raw power. Another insane story was about a gorilla in captivity who was given a pet kitten. When the kitten died, the gorilla went silent for days, refused food, and made the sign for sad. You can't look at that and not see emotion. These creatures feel. There was also a case of a lion raised by two men in London back in the 60s, Christian the lion. When they released him into the wild, years later they went back to find him, and when they did, he ran up and hugged him like an old friend. That video still gives me chills. Snakes, man. People underestimate how intelligent some snakes are. There's a story about a python that learned to escape its enclosure by unscrewing the lid. It watched the zookeeper do it, remembered the motion, and mimicked it. That's problem solving from a creature without limbs. And let's talk about ravens. They can plan for the future, use tools, and even manipulate wolves. When a pack makes a kill, ravens will lead them to carcasses so they can feed on the leftovers. That's interspecies cooperation at its finest. Another story I heard was about a pod of dolphins getting high off pufferfish. They pass the fish around, gently getting small doses of the toxin that gives them a buzz. They literally do recreational drugs. Wild animals, man. Then there's that story from Russia about bears that dig up graves. They learned humans bury food with the body softening. Sometimes animal sand the bears adapted. Nature's dark opportunists. One of the craziest involves camels. These animals will remember a person who mistreated them for years and attack on sight. There was a handler who hit his camel, left the area for months, came back, and the camel bit him and stomped him. They hold grudges like mob bosses. And don't forget the mimic octopus. This little sea creature can imitate a lionfish, a flatfish, even a sea snake. It changes its color and shape depending on the predator it's trying to fool. That's like one animal being able to cosplay as 10 different species. There's also the story of a whale shark that followed a fishing boat for months because the crew used to feed it. It started recognizing their engine sound and would appear every time they came near. That's loyalty you wouldn't expect from a fish. In Alaska, there was a moose that survived being attacked by wolves by diving into a frozen lake, breaking the ice, and using the water as cover. It actually used the environment to outsmart its predators. You can't script that. There was a falcon in the Middle East trained to hunt drones. That's right, a bird of prey taking down technology. We've literally merged ancient instinct with modern warfare. And one of my favorites, beavers. When beavers build dams, they actually respond to the sound of running water. Scientists put a speaker in the woods playing water sounds, and the beavers started piling sticks on it. They're wired to fix leaks, even fake ones. I also heard about parrots that learned to curse from their owners and then started teaching other parrots. They had to separate them in a zoo because they wouldn't stop yelling profanity at guests. That's chaos with feathers. And dolphins, again, they've been known to give each other names. Each has a unique wee, steal, a kind of signature sound. And when one dolphin calls another, it mimics that whistle. That's language, man. They're naming each other. Then there's that shark that survived in the Arctic, estimated to be over 400 years old. That means it was swimming before the US was even a country. It's like a ghost from another era. And finally, there's a story about a crow that used traffic lights to crack nuts. It would drop the nut on the road, wait for cars to crush it, then fly down during the red light to collect the pieces. That's innovation. All these stories, man, they remind me that animals aren't just background characters in our world. They've got strategies, memories, relationships, emotions, and sometimes even humor. We like to think we're the smartest species, but when you really look at what nature's capable of, it's humbling. Every one of these creatures is living proof that intelligence doesn't belong to humans alone. It's everywhere on land, in the sky, and deep beneath the ocean. You just have to be paying attention to see it.